What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined again by my dad Sean, and today on Reactions to the Classics, we are up to David Bowie's classic record, Aladdin Sane. We reviewed Hunky Dory and Ziggy Stardust. Both enjoyed those, so we're excited to keep going through David's discography from the 70s. And if this is your first time stopping by the channel, we appreciate it. Here at Reactions to the Classics, we take a look back at some of the most classic albums of all time, do a detailed track-by-track review of them. Just like today, it's usually the first time we've heard the record, so if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And if you want to link up with us more, we have links to our Facebook and Patreon down below. But all that to say, let's just get into these quick facts.
Yeah, it's a sixth studio album for David. It debuted in April of 1973. It's number 279, the Rolling Stones' top 500 albums of all time. Although technically a new Bowie character, Aladdin Sane was essentially a development of Ziggy Stardust and his appearance in persona. Lacking the thematic flow found on its predecessor, Aladdin Sane was described by Bowie himself as simply Ziggy Goes to America. Most of the tracks were observations he composed on the road during the Ziggy Stardust tour.
Yeah, and he had some mixed feelings about this journey because he enjoyed being up on stage performing. That's who he was at its core, but he noted that the travel and just all the buses going from town to town was a hassle. So Aladdin Sane was split down the middle. This kind of schizophrenia, as Bowie described it, was conveyed on the cover by his makeup, where that characteristic lightning bolt represents the duality of mind, although he would later tell friends that the Lad and Zane of the album's title track was inspired by his brother Terry, who was a schizophrenic and who has been noted on the closing track of Hunky Dory on the Bowie brothers.
Exactly, great point to tie back into that. He started recording this in January 1973 at Trident Studios. In between dates for the Stardust tour, you know, the Beatles do this all the time. It always is just amazing to me, Trey, when they got to go in the studio, write new songs, record that while they're out here performing.
Yeah, it's full plate.
It had a rush release, and that was kind of blamed for the mixing on a couple songs. The Rolling Stones inspired Watch That Man and Cracked Actor buried the vocals and the harmonica, respectively. But Bowie and the producer Ken Scott later kind of came against this suggestion regarding Watch That Man, claiming that a remix they produced, which brought the vocals forward, was considered by RCA Records. Actually, RCA asked for that, and then RCA said, never mind, leave it like it was. So they did what they could, but you will notice it right away. We get into the first track, Watch That Man. First time I listened to it, I adjusted my headphones, like, am I hearing this?
Yeah, because that vocal is just buried.
Buried, man. It's just like, who mixed this? It sounds like a 1962 mono mixing. But it did really grow on me.
Yeah, but for real, I thought it was a powerful, like, dirty rock opener. You could definitely tell the Stones' influence. Mick Ronson, lead guitarist, just stands out right away. The up-tempo music really fit the party atmosphere of the lyrics.
Yeah, and it's talking about September of 1972. Dave was in New York City for a while. Spent a lot of time with the New York Dolls, which are a massively influential punk glam band, but he was hanging out with them, and it's the story of one of the band's after parties with Bowie taking note of all the guests, but paying special attention to, quote, that man, which was David Johansen, who was the Dolls' lead singer. And for me, this is one of the standout tracks in this album. It grew on me more and more. Even with the mixing, I kind of ignore it after a while. The more I've heard the song, I don't even notice that it's kind of drowned out.
Yeah, you get used to it pretty quick. And then we go into the title track next, Aladdin Sane, and in parentheses, 1913, 1938 to 1970 question mark.
Yeah, and the dates in parentheses refer to the years preceding World War I and World War II, with the third unknown date reflecting Bowie's belief in an impending World War III. He wrote in December 72 as he sailed back to the UK following the first leg of his US Ziggy Stardust tour. It's very famous for a piano solo that's avant-garde that goes on for quite a while. Just a quick note, if you've never heard this album or not, Aladdin Sane is a lad insane. Trey kind of mentioned it for Bowie's brother. But just, you can hear it.
Yeah, it's a homophone. I had to go back to my old high school English days.
I would have to go back a very long ways, guys, to pull that out of my head, and I don't have that in the knowledge base.
But I thought this was a track that was very thought-provoking, because essentially he's talking about a lad would have to be insane to go off to war.
Yes.
The lyrics note kind of the narrative that's presented to a bunch of young men that, hey, if you go off to war, you're going to be able to see Paris and all these exotic places.
They glorify it, and I thought that was, a great point. You know, they glorify, hey, come fight for your country. Hey, look at it. You're going to travel the world. You're going to have this brotherhood. And they prey on people a lot of times who are not connected, who feel like they're missing something.
Socially outcast, maybe poorer, the fringes of society. And
not saying if you volunteer for the service army, much kudos to you, but it's his point in this, and it is a very valid point.
Yeah, that sometimes the powers that be are so just kind of manipulate.
Yeah, because they just sit back and watch
the strings. And I thought that piano that you noted, it was very unique, and it did almost fit the crazy, insane type of vibe to the track. Drive-In Saturdays, the next track, this was actually top 3 hit in the UK, and this is set, Bowie set in the world 2033, so we're not too far from that. I was
going to say, it was a long ways back then, but not very far now.
And it's in a post-apocalyptic world, and the lyrics describe there's like people maybe in domes out in the street, and
a little Ziggy feel to this one.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't know how to make love, so they have to like look at erotica and just stuff like that. And
Trey doesn't want to say the word. They got to look at old porn videos. That's what this thing is about. I mean, only David would think it was totally could have went into the Ziggy Stardust.
Oh, absolutely, because I think people just lost so much connection with everything that it's just like a mechanical act. There's no like love anymore. That's kind of what I took from it.
It would be like somebody was holding a device all the time, like a phone or living it. Oh, okay, David maybe.
Hey, David was onto something.
Yeah, he might have been onto something. Its composition was inspired by strange lights amidst the barren landscape between Seattle, Washington, and Phoenix, Arizona, through his train during his U.S. tour. It featured Bowie's synthesizer and saxophone. For me, the song, pretty good.
I agree. And then that takes us into Panic in Detroit.
Yeah, and this was an interesting song. It was based on Iggy Pop's observations of the Detroit riots in 1967 and him sharing that with Bowie. Musically, it's been described as a salsa variation on the Bo Diddley beat. Features prominent conga drums, female backing. Lyrics, once again, name check Che Guevara. This one took a while to grow on me. There's a lot going on in this thing. When you first listen to it, it's like...
just musically and the story.
There's a lot going on, but it works for me. It's not one of my favorites on here, but it's definitely middle of the road, and this album really good, so middle of the road is pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it more so for the story itself because it's interesting. This guy's looking for an autograph from this like revolutionary leader, and then eventually from the revolution chaos ensues. No change really happens, and then he finally sees the revolution guy again. He did get his autograph, but it was in the form of a suicide note that said, "Let me collect dust." So just kind of a haunting final image there about how sometimes with good intentions, with we're gonna revolt, it just ends up going to people's selfish ways. So I thought that was unique about it. And then that'll take us to
Cracked Actor, which is one of the more hard rocking tunes on here. It's about an aging Hollywood star who hooks up with a prostitute, various illusions of sex and drugs in here. This was one of my bottom tier songs. It's not horrible or anything, it doesn't fire on all cylinders for me.
It doesn't stand out with some of the other quality tracks that are on here.
It's not horrible.
Yeah, it was just kind of middle of the road for me. It was interesting because, this guy pays for a prostitute and whatnot, but you can tell in the lyrics that he says, like, please stay. I think at the end of the day, he just wanted somebody of connection.
Around, because no matter how rich and famous you are, a lot of times those people lack any sort of human connection, and that money doesn't buy you anything, and they kind of figure that out, and that's kind of what I think Bowie is getting to here.
Absolutely. And then we go to the next track, Time.
Starts the B-side. It was written in New Orleans in November 1972 during the American leg of the Ziggy Stardust tour. Described as a burlesque vamp and compared to cabaret music. Keyboardist Mike Garson said that he employed the old stride piano style from the 20s and mixed it up with avant-garde jazz styles. The piano stands out on this song as well, which you don't find from music at this time, not this style.
I'm gonna say that 1973, if you came out with a song called Time, it was probably pretty good. With Pink Floyd's Time.
I was going to say, that's exactly right.
And this song, because I thought this was a fantastic track.
It is.
It's interesting because Bowie personifies time as a vile monster that eventually is going to catch up with all of us.
And it is.
And he addresses time in that first verse, and then in the second verse, he shifts it to you. He addresses the listener, gets them keyed in, and at the end of the day, even though time's going to catch up with us all, he encourages us to just keep fighting the good fight, even if we have to make tough decisions and whatnot. So I thought the message was pretty solid here, and as you mentioned, that piano really stood out.
Yeah, it brings some to it. And yes, the final thought on that song, Trey, is Father Time is undefeated. That is not a cliche, that is a truth. And that takes us to The Prettiest Star.
Yeah, for me, this would be my least favorite track.
Mine too, so we're in agreement on that.
I mean, it's nothing hideous, but it just seemed very basic compared to the other 9 tracks on this record. It's pretty much just a basic little love song that just has a unique little backing. But
yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. We can move on to the next song. Let's Spend the Night Together. It's a Rolling Stones song from 1967, written by Mick and Keith. This one adds some synthesizer, and it actually has some different lyrics towards the end of it that David has added in. But he was really honest that he was going after a Stones sound on this album, and he just went ahead and popped a Stones song on there as well. So I like that he wasn't trying to disguise anything or anything like that. He was constantly changing. He's the ultimate chameleon, and this song worked for me.
And I like that even though he covered it, he added his own twist to it. Just like with It Ain't Easy from Ziggy Stardust, another cover there, he always just adds something that, even though you've heard the song a lot of times before, it adds an extra dimension to it. And I thought we had that here. Even towards the end, the music starts to fade, and then he gives his little ad-lib verse that he actually added to the song before we get one last sonic boom. So for a cover, I thought this was fantastic. And then we start to close out the album a little bit. We got our next track, the Jean Genie. This was released as a lead single in November of '72, peaked at number 2 in the UK, and according to Bowie, it was a smorgasbord of imagined Americana with a protagonist who was inspired by Iggy Pop, who pops up again, and the title being an allusion to author Jean Genie.
Yeah, and the line, he's so simple-minded he can't drive his module, later gave the band Simple Minds their name, and Trey, they had a huge hit with Don't You Forget About Me from the Breakfast Club. Shout out to John Hughes movies of the 80s for my fellow 40-somethings. Bowie plays a harmonica on the outro. Said he wanted to capture what the Stones had on their first album, so here they go popping up again. Interesting subject matter, and interesting to me that they chose this as the lead single, because for me, this song's just okay. It's not one of the standout top half of the tracks for me.
I think I liked it a little bit more than you.
That's good.
I mean, I just thought it, again, is tackling interesting subject matter. You have some great internal rhymes here. Strung out on lasers and slashback blazers, and ate all your razors while pulling the waiters, talking about Monroe and walking on Snow White, New York's a go-go, and everything tastes right. Like, David's a pretty solid lyricist.
Oh no, he is, and when you read his lyrics, and I go over them in the research quite a bit, and it's like, yeah, his songs, it takes you a little bit to figure out. Some of them you like never really get where he's going. But yeah, I'm glad you shared that, because it is a very interesting thing.
But I'm with you. Be kind of more in the middle for me, unlike this ending track.
Lady Grinning Soul. It's a romantic piano ballad. His first meeting with American soul singer Claudio in 1972 is cited as the inspiration for the song. She's also said to be the inspiration behind the song Brown Sugar by, wait for it, the Rolling Stones. So Claudia must have made quite the impression.
Yeah, and he ended up calling Lanier in 2014.
A couple years before he passed.
And told her that, yeah, I did write this song about you. And I love this track. This is my favorite song on the entire record. And I know you're not a huge fan.
You are, because you saw in my notes I wrote "don't like."
I was about to throw hands, but we'll try to keep the violence to a minimum here. But I just love the way he it is kind of just a unique James Bond-like feel to it. And at the very end, he just has like a haunting kind of thought-provoking line, "She will be your living end," and just the way that piano plays is fantastic. But it's okay to be wrong sometimes.
Hey man, that's the beauty of music. I tell you guys that all the time in the comments if I'm the one answering. It's great to disagree on music.
Oh yeah.
If you think it's great, that's awesome, man, because that's really what this thing's all about. Which brings us to the most awesome songs on the album, which for me is Watch That Man and Time.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Watch That Man, Lady Grinning Soul, and I really enjoyed Panic in Detroit as well. And that's gonna take us to our overall score of the record. For me, this didn't reach the heights of Ziggy Stardust, but I didn't expect it to.
No, I didn't either.
That's one of the best albums really ever. I mean, it's a fantastic record, and David kept up the string of hits here. I think I actually like this more than Hunky Dory, just a little bit. So I'm gonna be in the 8.25 to even 8.5 range. I thought this was a really solid record, and David's really been a nice person to kind of add to the musical palette.
Yeah, I shared this on the Ziggy review, but my exposure to David Bowie as someone born in '71 was 1983, Let's Dance, and China Girl and Modern Love, and I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I've really grown to like Bowie a lot. I think I might like Hunky Dory a little better than this. I'm
It's
going to
tough.
come in at a 7.75 on this, which is still very solid. Ziggy, for me, would even take on a higher rating than what I gave it when we rated it.
Yeah.
I gave it a very high rating. I think it's one of the best albums we've reviewed. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to continuing this journey with David.
Oh, me too. And let us know what you think of Aladdin Sane in the comments below, your favorite tracks. And as always, Dad, appreciate all the research you do. Always interesting to see the backstories of these fantastic tracks. And if you enjoy this video, y'all, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We upload multiple times a week in a variety of genres. And until next time, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Happy listening, my friends, and we will see y'all next time.